you have a country which is pretty much business friendly, where it's democracy, to the point that Modi wants to change the name. Bharta, the mother of democracy.
When you think of India, what's the one word that comes in your mind?
What's the name of the god?
Lakshmi. Lakshmi. You see, India is going to have Lakshmi.
Money, growing market, biggest market in the world, 1.5 billion people. Democracy.
This is India, a story in the making. And I'm your host, Lavina Tandon.
Yeah. My guest today is a man who has a knack of riding on waves. May it be the rolling waves of the sea as a surfer or a sailor, or the financial waves where he has already clocked 25 years as an investment banker, or the wave of opportunity in the growth story of India. And I'm going to attempt his name, Stefano della Chiesa di Sasca.
Thank you very much.
I did it!
Wonderful introduction.
Thank you. Did I pronounce the name right?
Yes, correctly. Yeah.
So you're Stefano of the Church
of di Sasca. Sasca, which is a village in the north of Italy, in Piedmont.
So you, in Italy, do you name your names after the village? And
yeah, family names comes either from the place you come from or from the job you do. So historically.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
The church thing is that it's a very old family, so at the time there were, kind of fighter knights of the church, so of knights of the church of that village. That kind, and then the names stick.
Fabulous. But do you allow me to call you Stefano?
Yes, absolutely. You don't have to say the whole name anymore.
Not anymore. Thank you for coming. So, since you have a knack for riding waves, I hope you get time for that now, being an investment banker. But tell me, what brought you to the financial market, considering your brilliant background of your grandmother being an actor as well, and then to the growth market of India, the wave of India? How did you kind of land on that?
Well, came to London after my university in Rome. More opportunity was back in the 90s. Investment banking was growing, so I joined, and then the UK, what we call Cool Britannia, was very hospitable for many foreigners, Italian, French, German. So then I ended up staying here, marrying here, having my family here, and basically keep working in the city of London. And India is part of my job. My kind of daily activity, especially recently, is look after investment, also in emerging markets. So I have to know what's going on in India, what's going on in China, another, either developed market or emerging markets. One thing I wanted to say when I thought about India is I put myself in the shoes of European, American, British investor, and when they go to India, they find a friendly business language. Because India is a mix between civil law and common law. Let's say the business language is common law, so it's very similar to Australia, to the UK, to the United States, where there are countries that have civil law, and ultimately the civil law comes from the Roman Empire law, and then was modified, became the church law, the Pope law, so the canonic law, and then it became the Code Napoleon, which is basically a set of code where the law is codified and everything needs to tie up, whatever you do needs to tie up to that law. So automatically everything becomes, from a business perspective, it becomes slower, more bureaucratic, with more, requirements and checks. So when you say British investor, American investor go to my country in Italy and invest, they like Italy, they like asset class, but always, oh my God, what's going to happen then? We need to check this, we need to check that. But not because Italians are bad or French are bad, etc., but because of the civil law. Common law, in a way, it's easy. In the UK, you can set up a company, one day, close a company in another day. In Italy, Germany, ages, trade unions, whatever. So when you're going abroad in emerging markets, you're going to China, civil law. You're going to Russia, civil law. You go to India, somehow it's something very close to what you're used to. It's different because it's another country, it's a development country, etc. But it's got this peculiarity of the common law. That's the first thing. All this started basically back in '93, after the fall of the Soviet Union, where finally you have this new Silk Road from China to Europe to Central Asia and all this market development. Now this time has passed, and at the G20 summit in Delhi, what they announced was the IMEC, India, Middle East, European Corridor. So instead of going China, Central Asia, Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, we move south, also because there is a war in the north, and because there is a tension with China in the economy. China also is not doing very well at the moment, unemployment, debt, stagflation, huge problem with real estate, etc. So all of a sudden you turn around and you see a country with just passing number of population. They passed China, they have more people than China. They landed on the south side of the moon. They 75 years from the independence from England, you know, so much the celebration. The Ambani family throwing the Dior party in Mumbai back in April. So many events. India is always on the spotlight. And so more people than China, not the same level of capital control, business friendly because they are common law. And then is this corridor you finally got from India, you go up to, you know, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Israel, the Emirates, Southern Europe. So finally you can actually, with this IMEC, let's say there is all a set of countries which is, for example, just to give an example, Saudi Arabia net trade commerce with the United States was 80 billion 10 years ago, now it's 26. The same number with China at the moment is 86. So even in Saudi Arabia is switching to India. And many companies...
You meant
Saudi Arabia is
with India?
Yes, compared to China.
Okay.
Because there is all these political tensions with China. So everyone also is looking at the shift to India. So all of a sudden you have the United States potentially have some allies. You know, Israel always been an ally, Saudi Arabia always been an ally. And then you have this new country, which is big emerging markets, doing so well, which is India, which can actually be kind of in the middle to create more stability in the region versus the power of China, versus the other Middle Eastern country. So that's these two big factors, the IMEC that was announced, and the fact that, you know, you can actually do business in India. NVIDIA, the chip making company for artificial intelligence, last week they signed an agreement with Reliance, which is the Ambani conglomerate, to develop artificial intelligence program in India, and some other there's another company that produce iPhones, and even Apple, they're moving from China, out of China into India.
China is punishing them for that.
Yeah, and NVIDIA cannot go to China because basically the risk is that they're going to use artificial intelligence to develop unconventional weapons. You know, there's all this, there is geopolitical factor. So these two factors, I think, are helping India to develop. Then if we go to the numbers in the economic, then we find what's instead is a little bit going wrong and still need to fix.
No, so we'll come, that fixing will definitely come to, and the challenges that they face. But I want to pick up on something quite important that you said, that I heard a lot of trust when you felt, balancing China with India and that corridor and the ease of work doing the business with India. Where does this trust come from?
I think it trust from this geopolitical reasoning, and you can see that Modi, I think he was the first and only Indian Prime Minister, was invited twice in the United States. Back in 2005, the United States basically kind of revoked the visa to Modi to come to the States because of the famous, history of his past when he wasn't the Prime Minister. He was in that region of India, in Gujarat. Yeah, and all the issue there. But then he was invited twice to the United States to talk to the Congress, and he was the first one to do that. He came also invited in the UK, So I think Modi, what he brought is kind of national sense of pride of India, and for the first time to make India a great nation, etc. All concept that from the outside, I mean locally, I don't want to talk about politics, people can see this as to be, right-wing, populism, etc., etc. But as an investor, we start seeing some, they walk the talk. They say,
Do they walk the talk?
Yes,
is what you're
they
saying.
do, and that's what Modi it looks like is doing. That this, for example, this huge plan, PM, what's called Gati Shakti, which is the plan for the government for infrastructure to invest 1.8 trillion in infrastructure, 1.2 in manufacturing. Basically, all the different departments of the Indian government, they're going to have access to this huge portal. And this huge portal will tell them if they have a plan, submission plan to build a road, to build a port, to build a train station. They have all the other crossing, legal barriers, and this cannot be done. If you go through this city, it will cost you too much money. It's a kind of optimization of all the infrastructure planning. So you have a government to talk to as an investor, which actually is responsive. And okay, it may be a government you like less, you like more. Investors don't care that much. Until there is a civil war and things are really screwed up. As an investor, you say, okay, I put the money there. Do I have certainty? If you give me collateral against it, do I have access to my collateral? Are we working in a region where the law is such that if you default, then I'm a creditor of you and I can recall, do the things work? If they work, I'll put the money to work there. I'm not a politician, I'm not going there to judge. It's not up to me. It would be the history, it's people, the voters, it's not the job of an investor that much. We look at it as a thermometer of what can go wrong for the investment, but it's not our job to kind of think politically, So I let that be on its own.
Okay, so you feel that as long as there is a stable political climate and the promises can be carried out, an investor would look at India, and that's why you're looking at India as a strong emerging market.
Exactly, and there are few other big signs. For example, JP Morgan announced that they have intention to add India in their indices. If you are an investor in asset management, you have all these benchmark indices. So you invest in the bond market and you need to say, okay, you give me your money, I invest. And you say, Stefano, the bond market made 10%, you should make 11, because you should be better than the market. So these indices represent the benchmark. And the big benchmark provider are JP Morgan and Barclays. JP Morgan said, well, we're going to put the India into the emerging market indices. And Barclays said, well, not yet, because this government bond needs to be settled like Euroclear would do. The rating of India needs to go up, it's too low, it's BBB minus, etc. So, but if this happens, then it means that foreign investors can actually treat India like a liquid market, and a lot of money will come in. For example, another sign, S&P, they say 20% of GDP of India, it goes into the corporate world, it goes to the company. And in the next 5 years, that will reach 60%. Now, GDP of India, just to also for the audience, United States, $25 trillion. China, leave it or take it, 17, 18, with the hand not on the fire. Just a joke. Then you go to Germany, Japan, 4 trillion. Then you go to India, 5th economy in the world, 3.3. Okay? They say India is growing at 7% a year. Let's assume they go 10% a year. That means 400 billion a year. So the big talk is India will be 5 trillion by 2025.
Yeah.
That implies $2 more trillion. And that would mean at least $8 trillion of foreign investment in India. And it's a lot of money. And does India has the infrastructure,
Yes,
the
to handle
capital
that.
to handle all this inflow of money, because for example, all the big money is going to the big company. So you go Adani, Ambani, what's the other? There's another Ani family, Birla, you know,
Yes.
Mitra. These are the people who gets all the money because they have so many companies, they have educated professional, and then for the people of India, the small company is difficult to access to credit, access to funding. You know, there are like small companies are struggling, and also the money that the government put to work is where the government decides. So agriculture, infrastructure, and the rest is still, you know, it's a big challenge for India, if you want.
I totally agree. So I had this thought in the mind, but yes, it's going from 3.5 to 5 trillion, and it'll take, and your work is in focus on debt and assets. And how would you, and absolutely right, that it will be hard to, it must be a sticking point or at least a question mark, or what do you ask yourself when you see India is going from 3.5 to 5 and to 8? What are you taking in consideration as far as debt is concerned in 1, 2, 3? What is positive and what is challenging?
I'm looking at the corporate access to the markets, to funding is big corporate, mid corporate, small corporate, the credit level in the banking system, because so far all this GDP growth is sustained, is domestic demand, is domestic spending by the government. There are big companies coming like Capgemini, 60,000 jobs, these other company from Taiwan, they make iPhone, you know, they're going to come to India, another 40,000 jobs. I mean, there are all different names. Private equities, we are reach 60 billion a year of activity in India. Venture capital is the growing startup, especially in the IT and the pharma sector. But these are all like, you know, small cherry in a big garden, which still many things are not working in terms of infrastructure. So like this sign will put the India government bond in the index. When this happens, it means that the ground, it looks finally solid. And that's the sticking point, that's the edge. When India passed this, so you have basically the public market, which is going at very high speed, the government money, basically, and the private side, which is lagging, because not everyone has got access to the same credit. There was another article, which I came across, about the audit firm. You know, the usual, the big four, PNC, PwC, Deloitte, etc. And I think Deloitte is a market leader, but you can't have 4 auditors. You need 50 auditors. You know, it's like there's a lot to be done, you know, but it's going fast. It's going very fast, and you also notice that when things are happening, you have big family on the news. Like, for example, in Italy, when there was the boom, Italian boom in the 60s, when we made the Autostrada del Sole, the A1, the motorway from Napoli to Milano, from Milano to Napoli, everyone was like the big infrastructure project, and then you had the Agnelli, the Ferrero, the Pesenti, all the big family of the country. Because it's a family country, you know, it's not, the markets are not developed that much, so who moves the money is the biggest, you know.
How do you see that as someone who's sitting outside? I mean, you hail from Italy, you're married a Greek, so you know, you deal with American and European institutions, you work in the city of London, you have a completely global worldview. How do you see this when you look at India?
And they see they are at that stage that when all these big families are on the news every day, it means that we are at the turning point. Because after them, there is the markets, there are the investors. So there is more small corporate which can issue bonds, small corporate that can issue share, and investor that buy shares. So at some point you start to talk less like in the United States, genius performed Morgan, J.P. Morgan. He was the guy who built all the railways at the beginning of the century in the United States.
So
Then he became J.P. Morgan, a bank, and it was
public.
Yeah, you wouldn't talk about the family anymore. So now that's why you talk about Adani, Ambani, and all these families, because these are the huge conglomerate. When this conglomerate becomes, the economy becomes more solid, there are smaller players coming in, more corporate bond market, develop capital markets, and because of the IT infrastructure in India and the mentality, they can actually happen very, very quickly. That's what people don't realize. There's no a social, religious. You don't have like a religion that wants to tell people how to live. You don't have like a civil law central government or socially strong communist. You have a country which is pretty much business friendly, where it's democracy, to the point that Modi wants to change the name. Bharta, the mother of democracy.
How do you say
Hindustan. Let's call it Hindustan.
Does it make you, do you worry about that?
No.
Does it factor in anything that you do?
No, but it's marketing, That's
it's marketing. Okay.
It's marketing.
How is it marketing?
It's fire. Bharta means fire. I read it out.
And you're okay with that? It doesn't make a difference to you?
Yes, because it means we want to grow, we want to be the best, we want to build this, we want zero pollution, we want to have the best train, we want to build a corridor from North India to the south of India, from the east to the west, etc.
So you looked into this whole India Bharat?
Yes, because I follow the politics and what they say, and he said, Bharta, the mother of all democracy. Let's change the name. And I thought, why not call it Hindustan?
I think we'll stick to Bharat.
Yeah, we'll stick to Bharat.
And you're okay with that, so that's fine.
Yes, because the only political issue that is talked in India is this thing, too much Hindu, poor Muslim because of Modi, blah, blah. But it's a little thing.
Does it worry you?
No,
do you factor that in when you look in the market?
No, because it's so tiny in terms of discussion, It's like two brothers, Modi and Gandhi, fighting each other. It's not. It doesn't look serious. It doesn't look that it's going to lead to violence. It's not going to lead to revolution, to civil war, or anything. It's just the local politics that are going to develop themselves into something better and better. Every they're just politics. You need politics in life.
So in a way, if I could say that while you're looking at the emerging market, while looking at investing in India, you're not factoring. It's not. You're having an eye on it, but you're not.
I'm not factoring, and I don't see any backstop, anything that can actually stop this growing. The only thing is, that the government at some point collapse, and no one is doing the reform that needs to be done for the small businesses, for the youth unemployment, etc. But on the other hand, there are these, like the low dependency factor, that there is so young people. India is like the one of the country with the lowest dependency.
Yeah, youngest.
In Europe, the demographic, it's
advantage is huge.
Huge help. So I doubt that all these smart young Indian kids working in Chennai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Delhi, Gurgaon, what's the new place?
Gurgaon.
Yes, they won't stop. Developing new things, developing new company, ask for funding, and stay there and improving. So that's why everyone. Also, Goldman Sachs said that India will be by 2050, GDP will be 50 trillion, with China will be the second or even the first largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I want to hold on to that young population and the talent bit, but I want to quickly go back a little bit on the family thing that you had mentioned. Yeah. So because there's a huge conversation that happens in India about, wealth being concentrated in the hands of a few families. And very interesting comparison you made between Italy as well as other countries, even to US, who at one point had this family thing, and then that you are calling is a turning point.
Yes, correct.
Am I right to understand that?
Because there is enough wealth accumulated to build something which at some point, there is like in the world of happiness, if you want, there is a point that you cannot be too selfish, because the people next to you needs to be happy, a little
As
bit
well.
happy as well. Otherwise,
You won't work.
it doesn't work. You don't make any more money.
So it has to be more democratized.
Yes, in a
by
way. So
organically, in order for you to flourish.
accumulation of wealth into this conglomerate and this family that at some point they need to reverse this wealth in the country.
And
And
that
that's
will
where you see a turning point in the, in becoming a developed economy.
Very interesting. So there comes a point when families do become focal points, but then there is diversion as well, because that is an
Yes.
organic moment.
Exactly.
Of development in a country.
Yes, I didn't do a study about that, but if you think about there are precedents in Italy, United States, surely in England as well, where
Yeah, this happens. And it doesn't bother you as an investor when you look at it?
no, I don't think so. I think it's a way.
Did the Adani
so
issue bother you? I mean, the Hindenburg, what they said about how did you
it's
read?
not just me, it's the whole market. The report came out in January, and then Adani had a massive response, and they got 3 billion from wealth funds. They got this Australian private equity stepping in. They allowed the creditors, the bondholder, to come and visit, to have all access to operation. I mean, they've been very transparent. There's not a single thing that was done what is not, prompt reaction to what happened. Then there is the Supreme Court going on. So that would be, the Supreme Court of India, which has got this report that came out to read, the investigation. Then there was recently, last week, another report that was done not by them, Edinburgh, by a group of journalists that was shared with FT and The Guardian. Yeah, exactly.
At the moment, it's not a bother point or a sticking point for you.
I don't know.
No,
I don't think so.
because you feel convinced.
I think that, unfortunately, when you have such an accumulation of wealth in one family, like it happened for Adani, the next one can be Ambani, it can be Birla, it can be another family. The key point is that they control too many things. It's huge. It's huge activity, and but this huge activity normally is the turning point when this money needs to go somewhere. And normally they go domestically, and they improve the economy of a country. That's ultimately what happened,
Oh, that's interesting. Now, coming back to your talent point, so of late we have seen so many Fortune 500 companies having Indian origin CEOs, and they are increasing. Is there a correlation of this fact to the growth story, or what is happening?
It's that cultural, I think it's the cultural heritage I was talking about, the common law and the education, like the business school, and even the oriented study when they are at school and then they go to university, same university I'm assuming that the university in India, in Bangalore, etc. are, similar in a way to the UK, to the US from a business perspective, history, medicine, whatever. And that, of course, facilitates then to have this young talent working in international companies. Like if you go in the city of London, financial services, there was a lot of Italian desk, in American banks, and then you had a lot of Indian community. Like at some point, Deutsche Bank was run by the Indian, basically, and very successfully, I have to say. So it's that kind of mentality and approach to study, and there's always a huge community in the UK. This heritage make India, as said, very close to the UK and hence very close to the United States. So for them also, it's not just for us when we go and invest them, but from them when they come here and they go to the States, because of the Commonwealth and the mentality, they don't find something that different,
Interesting.
If they come to Italy at university and they have to study, ancient Roman law, they say, what is this?
Got
They
that.
say, I go to the States, to Georgetown, I will study something similar, like in Bangalore. So I think this is common ground, makes Indian very similar to this side of the world. And there's a reason why the financial center are in London and in New York, and they're not in Napoli and in Madrid. There's, you
So it's the common law thing that works
yes,
for you.
it's a business. The English made the common law out of being Protestants, out of Calvino, and they were great merchants, and they exported the system of common law and, you know, adjust the law and the controversy, any dispute, to whatever is happening in the world every day. And they exported that to the United States, and they exported that to any colony they had, and to the Commonwealth. And that's a huge difference. We, in the South, we are Catholic, meaning canonic Roman law, meaning Code Napoleon, means central state, civil law. And similar is the Russian, because the Russian law comes from, as well, heritage of Germany. And it's a totally different way of thinking and, you know, do business. Also, you have this idea of the, you know, it was God, then was the emperor, then was the king, then the pope, then the central state. Goes down, is hierarchy, is pyramid. So you do business and everything, but there are other things which are as well important. Whether in the Commonwealth and the common law, business pretty much prevail on all aspects of life.
So quickly turning around a little bit, though you have touched upon the common law between India and China, but how do you compare the growth story from here on? Because in fairness, China is far ahead of India at this point in time.
Yes,
but is there a but?
Yeah, there are huge but. The problem of China is the debt. They have 21% debt to GDP. So if the GDP is 18, 3.6 is debt, the central government. But then if you look at the local government, what they've done, like India is doing this huge infrastructure pipeline with the Gati Shakti National Master Plan.
Yes.
Is that the correct name?
Yeah.
China, what they did is they allowed each province to set up this special company vehicle, which will build roads and you know, infrastructure and hospital, whatever, to be used by the people. And this company will make profit out of this. And they will issue debt that the local government will buy. And then at some point happened with the real estate crisis that this debt was massive compared to the revenue that this company make. So the local government said, okay, I issue public bond, so Chinese bond, and with the money I get, I repay this debt. So the money, like the debt of the province of Shanghai, whatever, Shandong, is not used just to make new things, it's to pay off other debt. So if you look at the debt of the government, then you add the debt of the local authority, then you add the debt of this vehicle, the overall debt is 100% of GDP, meaning 17 trillion dollar. So everyone talks about this $10 trillion hidden debt of the province of China. And who's going to bail out that? Either the central government or the national banking champion. So Agricultural Bank of China, China Development Bank, Commercial Industrial Bank of China, the huge one. And they are the one who actually sustain the real estate business. So they lower the mortgage rate, they lower the lending standard to sustain the property developer. But all these property developers are defaulting. Evergrande, you know, Country Gardens is defaulting. So we got to a point that because of the capital control and the central government, all this organic growth, China, it wasn't that very organic. Also because of the capital control. So if you want to invest of China, in reality, there's all like a complex chain of connection between local company in China, there's a company in Hong Kong, there's a company in the Cayman, there's a lot like different boxes of interconnected to have investment in mainland China. If you want European or foreign firm based locally in China, they have the famous onshore, offshore, so they need to raise money locally. If you want to send money from abroad, there is all a sort of application, permission, sometimes it's forbidden according to... So all of this, in a way, it's the recipe for a disaster, if you want. You know, in the sense that I don't see this in India. In India there are not this capital control. There are capital control, but not the same as China. So China, it's an animal per se. If the government decide to fix all these issues, to open up, they have a visionary, they can do very quickly. It's a very powerful country, don't get me wrong, very rich, etc. But that's the way they manage their business. So for foreign investor, it became too complicated. And now that you got the neighbor across the road, literally, and you finally find, you know, easy ground, easy government to deal with, and everyone is switching on the other side.
Oh, is it easier? I mean, because there was a ease of doing business was always a question mark. Is it easier in terms of dealing
yes, it's always been easy. It's the surety of the law. So if you wanted to invest in India 10 years ago, you know, all these big family conglomerate kind of create a sort of economic stability for the investor. You know, it's it took a while. It's like building a solid ground. So now it looks safer.
Oh.
Before it was too much of emerging market, India. You
Okay.
know? And China was okay up to what can you do? You know, there's a point where you cannot do more. You cannot step into the local market.
So
The local market is for the Chinese. From the Chinese government, the Chinese bank, you can't compete with them. No an open market.
So you see a surety in terms of regulation and law, which encourages you to engage with India.
Yes, I think India has all the cards to create a business environment where foreign direct investment can just come and do business very easily. And you see this happening because you see so many firms start opening activity in India, set up subsidiary in India, outsourcing activity in India, because they realize that the actual employment law, corporate governance law, whatever is there, it works, is working, is better. Of course, it's not developed like if you were in England, in the US, but it's going to the right direction. You want to be on the front end. You want to arrive there before the other.
Now,
Establish as a market leader in that country, because that's a huge market.
and you're able to do that because you have trust now in the stability or the law and the regulation of the country. I
Yes,
get
and
that
the more
now.
you put the money in, the more you're going to go there. You're going to go to the Birla family, Adani, and you're going to say, yes, you're doing well, but if you want more money, I want you to fix this. So the guy needs to go to the government and say, look, there is this huge port, there is huge airport, there is this with a building with these funds and these are the funds. They said we need this.
Great.
So
It's on the
helping
roll.
each other.
Yeah, it's on the roll. So let me then ask in a few concluding questions as to what. Still, there is a long way for the foreign direct investment to go, and there is huge that's coming, more to go. What are the first top 3 things that need to happen to facilitate this further?
I think it's access to credit for the corporate. So it's actually credit markets, so meaning funding, access to funding, making development market, so corporate bond market, equity market, you know, capital markets, which will allow more companies in India to grow, to, you know, have access to funding and to develop business. And then on the other side, you need more auditors, more controller, more regulation. So let's say all that the government is doing in terms of green energy, zero net emission, infrastructure spending, you need to shift on the private side of the economy. That will make India pass, you know, the edge. And the thing is, if the government is not doing that, the big conglomerate will push for that. Because if they don't do that, they won't survive. If I am the Ambani Reliance, gym, Wi-Fi business, telecommunication, I need to make sure that the government helps me with, you know, repetitive tower, with, you know, rights for customer to complain, because otherwise I won't make any more business and I will lose the international money that comes from American, Australian private equity into my business because I'm not doing the right thing. So in a way, it's not just a political choice. There would be a lot of pressure by the markets, let's call it, which many people think, is like some weird organization, but it's actually dynamics of people doing business. I want to protect my business, so I would like this, because otherwise the guy's not going to give me the money. Yeah. So every Indian official in the government will have these things on the ears every day. So they will have to do something.
They'll have to do something. Okay. India was on the growth radar of the world, but it quite didn't materialize. What is it that is different now, that is attractive and that will be sustainable, and possibly we will see all the projections coming through?
I think that it's mainly the geopolitical reason, because how the world was at the time. The emerging market started in '93 after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So everyone is measuring the BRICS, which was a name invented by a Goldman economist.
Yes.
This concept of emerging market is didn't exist forever. It's from '93 that really, Soviet Union collapse, foreign investment are more allowed. We have access to Asia. Before it was just Japan, and Taiwan, some specific places. Now it becomes a massive growth. And the first thing was I think it was China entered WTO in '98, '97. I can't recall the exact year. And that was under the Clinton administration, open up to China, and that allowed the China dream. Everyone, there was we got a new Japan. You remember in the 80s they said Japanese come and copies everything and we do it better. So all happened with China, and I think it didn't happen with India because there was geographically there was all the central ex-Soviet Union kind of in the middle of this development. And then I have to say that from 2014 it was really the BJP party of Modi. I think he had 80 seats. Now he's got 55% of the seats. I think this guy managed to bring this concept of grow. India as a nation, nationalistic, grow, India identity, and so on and so forth, which it wasn't there historically for many reasons. But I assume that the difference from 2000 and now is really the geopolitical evolution and also the growth of the market. We had to wait. 2008 was the global financial crisis. We didn't have all this regulation. Now when we go around and exchange bond and corporate bond and equity and share, the regulator develops so many different rules which keep evolving and improving, which are initially maybe they were too strict because we were scared to have another disaster, and then they say, okay, maybe they're too strict, this should be better. So there's a lot of regulator activity to fine-tune and create a market which is fair, which means no market abuse, which means that the prices are arm's length, that you pay what is correct. So all this legacy of regulation that can easily export it in a market, for example, like India. Say, that's how we do bond market in the States, the settlement. That's how we do Euroclear and CEDEL in Europe. That's how collateral works. That's how Chinese wall works between one department and all these kind of things. And because the Indian people are listening, because they have the same mentality, and there's not like a central government with the civil law or their religion say, no, this is how we do it. We do it our way.
So they're listening and evolving.
Market. Yeah.
Listening and evolving.
Exactly.
And there is a hope of further...
Exactly. So that's why everyone thinks, okay, where is the obstacle whereby a country with 1.5 billion people, Europe is 300 million, US 300 million, so double Europe and US together, with people who are smart, or young, listening, open, with the same Commonwealth mentality, where is the catch? Why is it not going to work? And that's why you see Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs saying India is going to be 50 trillion by 2070 is going to be the largest economic power, because I think no one really sees a why not. No one sees what's the problem. It's going to come, like always happen in history, but it's difficult to identify something that will stop investor to look at India like an opportunity, because it's a huge market and it looks like a democracy.
We have a short little, like a rapid fire high five India section, and I'm going to ask Stefano about the 5 questions, and then you answer. So, first one, Stefano, what is, when you think of India, what's the one word that comes in your mind?
Lakshmi, what's the name of the god?
Lakshmi. Lakshmi, you see, India is going to have Lakshmi.
Money, growing market, biggest market in the world, 1.5 billion people. Democracy.
Democracy.
The mother of all democracy.
Okay, what sector of the Indian economy excites you the most for future investment opportunities?
IT and infrastructure.
IT infrastructure. Okay, if India's growth were a wave, everything about you is a wave, would you describe it as steady, surging, or unpredictable?
Steady. Steady.
What is the one thing the world can learn from India, or is there anything?
I think the kindness. There's a lot of kindness in the, in the population. If you think about how big is India, how many Indian people there are. I mean, of course, there's been violence, there's been war, etc. But it could be way lot worse than it is. And I think that because of the, it's the religion, the Buddha, the Hindu, is about, there is like a lot of kindness in that.
So your top piece of advice for international investors looking to ride the Indian growth wave?
Due diligence and due diligence, yeah.
Huh?
Know what you're doing, because it's still an emerging market, so you need to look at the details.
Okay, we have done our high five. You did well.
Okay.
But before I end, is it the most promising emerging markets as of the?
I think so.
And your reason?
Because it's the largest, and it's growing, and long term there may be short term shock, but long term is, I think, the best investment.
Brilliant. Thank you. Very good note to end on, actually.
Yes.
A little bit of kindness is required even in aggression in the business world as we move and forge forward. So, India, a story in the making indeed. Stefano della Chiesa. Disasca. I did it. Thank you very, very much, Stefano. As India has been predicted as the office of the world, the consumer of the world, and the factory of the world. And as Stefano said, he has high hopes for India as well. Of course, there are sticking points, but then as long as the country is listening, the government is evolving and making it better and better, and there is stability, there is a lot of hope. Another time with another guest talking about what is behind the numbers that everyone is talking about India. Thank you, take care, and God bless.
Catch the first episode this Sunday and a new episode every Sunday. Listen to our show wherever you get your podcasts from, or watch it on our YouTube channel.